We are live on Facebook, Supervisor Hopkins.
Great, thank you so much. I want to start off by welcoming everyone to this evening's town hall meeting. And before we go over the agenda, I would like to introduce my fellow panelists. So I am joined this evening by Lois Lebovich, who will be presenting later on in the agenda, and also by our Municipal Advisory Council members, Nick Pereira and Naomi Huffstutter. Also by the fabulous 5th District team of Elise Weiland, Leo Chi, and Jason. I'm just going to hand it over to Nick and Naomi briefly if they just want to say hello or wave and let everyone know who they are. Nick and Naomi.
Hi, everyone. Just an introduction. I'm Nick Pereira. Really excited to see so many people here already. And I just really want to encourage people to get involved with the fire safe councils that we're going to be presenting later. That's going to be really important, especially in accessing all of the funds that I know we're concerned about going forward. These organizations are really going to facilitate getting us the money to our local needs. So thanks again for Lynda for setting this up.
Hi, thanks for joining. My name is Naomi. I appreciate what Nick had to say and welcome the same information. I think that all of us have a lot of concerns, but if we don't voice our concerns and do something about it, we're probably just going to continue to spin in circles. So anything we can do to come together to take care of the community would be great.
Thank you so much, Nick and Naomi. And also thank you for your input on the agenda and really making sure that we share information about fire resources with the community. I also want to say thank you to Leo and Elisa and Jason, who have worked tirelessly to put this town hall together. I want everyone here tonight to know that we have designed this town hall in an attempt to actually maximize public comment and participation. And so while Leo and I are going to be presenting some information, we have worked really hard to keep the presentation as short as possible so that we can spend most of our time this evening listening to and hearing from the community. And that was feedback that we also got from Nick and Naomi, is making sure that we are not just droning on and that we are actually allowing the community an opportunity to participate so that we can hear what your concerns and your desires are. So here are the topics that we're going to cover. We are going to start with Johnson's Beach. At 6:30 p.m. at the latest, we will transition over to fire safety, infrastructure, and homelessness in, solutions and encampments. If there are still remaining comments regarding Johnson's Beach at 6:30, we will be accepting additional comments after that second and third presentation. Which brings me to a really important point, which is how you can participate in tonight's town hall. I want you to know that we will be accepting feedback in a variety of ways this evening. Number one, we will be conducting live surveys through Zoom. So if you are on Facebook and you want to be able to provide feedback and answer survey questions, I would encourage you to log off Facebook and onto Zoom now, because that will enable you to participate most fully in this evening's meeting. Number two, the Q&A function will be open for the duration of the meeting. So feel free to ask any questions here and upvote the questions that you want answered ASAP. We will be responding to questions in real time. You can also offer feedback in the Q&A section if you just have comments that you want to share, and that feedback will be kept as part of tonight's meeting's record. Number three, after each presentation, we will be accepting verbal feedback and questions with a 2-minute time limit. I do want to mention that we're not going to be responding to this feedback or questions verbally in real time because we want to give an opportunity to hear from as many folks as possible. But if there are questions that are raised verbally tonight, we will then input those questions into the Q&A function and answer it there. Number four, you can always email us at district5, and that's the number 5 not spelled out, at sonoma-county.org or at lynda.hopkins@sonoma-county.org. So we're going to go ahead and start with a trial survey just to familiarize you with this function if you haven't used it before. So Jason, if you wouldn't mind launching the first survey. I'm going to go ahead and answer it myself. This one should hopefully be pretty quick. So the goal is just to give everyone just a few seconds to go ahead and answer that question, and then we will actually have an opportunity to share the survey results in real time. And Jason, just so you know, is watching those survey results come in so that he can, monitor when it seems like most folks have responded, and then we'll be able to share those survey results.
We still have just a few people voting. We're up to 74% participation, and I will end this poll in the next few seconds. And here are our results.
So the good news is that 100% of the folks on this Zoom meeting do in fact love the Russian River, which is pretty awesome. And we actually do have a majority of the folks participating in this meeting live within the lower Russian River confines. And we also have, so I would say 72% live in the lower Russian River, 8% live there part-time, and then 20% do not. So just so everyone knows, that's who we have participating in this evening's meeting. So hopefully that worked for all of you. If you have any concerns or you had some issues, feel free to use the Q&A function and we can try to help you troubleshoot if you're having challenges with the poll. But with that, we're going to go ahead and shift over to the conversation regarding Johnson's Beach. So we're going to kick it off with basically an overview of the property. And it's a 10.5 acre property. I think that many of us know it, love it. I have heard from so many Russian River residents who really, grew up there and worked at the shop and really just absolutely had a wonderful relationship, particularly with Claire Harris and his family that stewarded it for so many decades here. The property is really broken into 3 distinct levels. There's the level that I think that we're all most familiar with, and that is really the beach and parking lot level that is down there by the Russian River. Then there is sort of the middle reach is kind of how I think of it, which is at a very different height from the beach and actually isn't really visible from the beach or from the road, which is First Street. So there's that kind of middle stretch that you can basically see sort of where Church Street ends and then kind of going across over towards the walking bridge. And then there is sort of the narrower neck of the property, which is actually up by the road, up by First Street, which is why the property does have an address on First Street. Now I'm going to go ahead and highlight sort of a few of the features of the property. So first, we're going to sort of show the different possible pathways for entry. So if we go ahead and there we go. So there is an entrance down there on First Street, and that really sort of provides access to the cabins as well as to the campgrounds. Then most folks enter the parking lot via Church Street. And while there is not currently an access point where the blue arrow is, it is a very, very short distance between Church Street and sort of the driveway for that section of the property. And so there could potentially also be an entrance there from Church Street to access that kind of left section of the campgrounds. So now I'm going to highlight sort of the different areas of the property, and we're going to go to the next section. This is one kind of campground area. And it's important to recognize that the campground actually, both of the campgrounds actually have sites both for tents as well as for RVs. And my understanding is that in the past, there were actually more long-term RVs that kind of were there more longer term or year round. And then that actually transitioned away with the current ownership. And actually then the current ownership really didn't do much RV camping at all and really shifted to more of a tent and cabin based model. So moving on, there's this section that's kind of, I would say, distinct in terms of the opportunity for camping there. Then we're going to go into the middle section of the property, which is really centered around the 10 cabin units. I did have an opportunity to tour these, and one thing that was interesting is there are 2 units that do not have kitchenettes. All of the other units have kitchenettes, but those 2 units without kitchenettes are actually adjacent to units with kitchenettes. And so there was a conversation when we were there that if, for instance, there was community desire in transitioning those cabins into workforce housing for Grenville employees, that could actually create sort of some family-based housing by combining those units. So that would create 8 units total instead of 10 units. There is also a 4-bedroom lodge in this red circle sort of the property. And there is also storage facility as well. So then we're going to go ahead and look at the other portion of the property, which is this other side of the campground, which also, in addition to having, RV and tent camping spaces, as well as some lovely picnic tables, also is where there is a dump station for RVs that is connected into the sewer system. And there are also RV spaces sort of scattered throughout the campsite that do have electrical and water and sewer hookup already installed, with the potential to sort of install more of them. So that is the property, and I'm not going to really say a whole lot about this because we really truly are in idea phase. We are not really in plan phase, and that's why we wanted to invite the community early on to participate in this town hall and share some thoughts. I will share with you the ideas that have come out. I mentioned one of them already, which was the idea of looking at the cabins as potentially workforce housing for local employees who might work in downtown, and that would enable them to work in downtown. Obviously, it's a topic of conversation that the beach and the parking lot could potentially become a public beach and a public parking lot that will be managed by regional parks. And then I've had conversation with folks about the different camping areas, and there are multiple ideas about that. There's the idea of looking at a concessionaire, sort of a local business who might be interested in managing one or both of those properties. There's also a conversation about whether a navigation center could go here in order to provide sort of a front door for services for folks who are either unhoused or who are unstably housed and at risk of losing their housing. And I will note that actually the left-turn portion of the property over on the Church Street side is the direct neighbor to the sheriff's substation there, as well as to the Guerneville Vets Hall. So those are some of the ideas that are coming out. Oh, and one other thing to notice, which we didn't really highlight in this slide, but in addition to the property areas that are pretty obvious as part of Johnson's Beach here, there actually is an additional parcel on the other side of Riverkeeper Park. And if all of that were to go into sort of public management, that would actually create sort of a continuous line from basically sort of the current Johnson's Beach over to Riverkeeper Stewardship Park, and then on the other side, and then directly across from that, we actually have our Grenville Riverfront Park that we are working on sort of making some investments in. We're working on the boat ramp, right, and on adding parking over there as well. And there are also some conversations about putting in overnight camping and tent camping on that property. So with that, I'm going to go ahead, and I promise to keep this presentation short, so I'm going to stick to that word, and we're going to go ahead and bring up the survey so that you can provide some thoughts on these potential uses and these ideas for Johnson's Beach. And I don't mean to interrupt your thoughts, but I forgot to mention under question 3 that the property has 2 ABC licenses, so alcoholic beverage licenses, and the county as a government entity is actually not allowed to either own or sell alcohol. However, we can actually partner with small businesses who could serve alcohol under those ABC licenses. And so that is really what question 3 is referring to is, there's an opportunity to create a food truck park. There's an opportunity to work with small businesses who might want to, revive the snack shack or bring kind of new ideas in terms of food service and beverage service to the area. So I did want to mention that even though the county is not allowed to own or sell alcohol, we can actually allow folks to sell alcohol and serve alcohol on county properties. And there's actually a model of that already in place within the regional park system, and that would be over at Spring Lake.
Just a quick update on our poll. We are at 66% participating right now, and folks are still answering. So thank you.
Great. So we will hang tight and be quiet for a little bit while longer so that folks can have an opportunity to finish answering those questions. And while we're waiting for folks to go ahead and answer those questions, I do have a couple of questions all on the same topic, which is, who do you see as workforce? How do we define workforce? And would the workforce housing be low income housing? I think those are great questions, and they're actually great questions for the community. There are formal definitions of sort of low income that are based on, you know, the AMI, sort of the median income for the area. But I think that that's a great question for the community. How do we define what workforce is? How do we define what low income is? What sort of part of the community would we want to serve through the cabins? And it looks like we do have our results up. So we say that it looks like more than 52%, we have 52% folks saying that the county should acquire Johnson's Beach for the benefit of the public, 25% saying no, and 22% unsure. When it comes to having Johnson's Beach as a public park and parking lot, 70% said yes, 18% said no, and 12% said unsure. 87% support working with local business owners as concessionaires to serve the beach. 3% say no, and 10% were unsure. Moving on down, we have, do you support using the 10 cabins at Johnson's Beach for workforce and family housing, specifically for Guerneville residents? 52% said yes, 24% said no, and 23% were unsure. Moving down to the next question. Do you support using some portion of the Johnson's Beach property for a navigation center? 32% said yes, 48% said no, and 21% said unsure. And do you support retaining some portion of the Johnson's Beach property for camping and overnight tourist use? 79% said yes, 6% said no, and the remainder were unsure, 15%. So thank you all so much for participating in that poll and for giving us a sense of what your vision for the property would be. Now we are actually going to go ahead and open it up to any members of the public who would wish to comment on this item. So if you want to go ahead and raise your hand, we will sort of allow folks to unmute and to speak publicly on this. And it will be limited to 2 minutes. We will have a clock up there so that you know kind of how your time is tracking. And then we'll be going right on to the next one. And again, if you ask any questions verbally through this process, we will be then inputting that into the Q&A and typing out answers in order to hear from as many folks as possible. We do have 137 participants in this meeting, so we want to give as much time to hear from you as we possibly can. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Jason to assist us with the public comment.
Our first hand raised is from Mark. Mark, go ahead and unmute yourself. Still muted, Mark. Okay, we're going to move on to, let's see, to Krista. Krista, go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Okay, thanks, guys. I think it comes as no surprise that I'm also one of the interested parties looking to acquire Johnson's Beach, and I've done a lot of research and conversations with the State Lands Commission. Because of the public trust doctrine, any private entity that also purchases the beach, like the Harris family and the family who owns it now, has to provide public access. That doesn't mean that they're not able to still charge for the parking lot, but it doesn't preclude us from, I mean, there's 100% public access to the beach when a private landowner owns it. So anyone who's concerned about having public access to the beach shouldn't be concerned about that. It's our public right, and it's sovereign reign by the state. However, that also doesn't preclude anyone from being able to have concessions and all the other things. If a navigation center ends up somewhere in the middle reach, whether that's underneath the bridge over to the far edge, I mean, if you build it, they will come. It's only going to exacerbate a problem that we already are faced with. And I just don't see how the county's solution to putting a navigation center or even workforce housing in something that is seasonally only. Those cabins are not insulated. You can look right straight through the floor. They're meant to be hosed out when they flood. They do flood. So what happens in the winter months to the quote unquote navigation center or the proposed housing? To me, it seems to make zero sense when those dollars could actually buy legitimate houses that are insulated with multiple rooms, real kitchens, and is not in the center of an iconic historic part of town. I just don't see the rationale of a $3.7 million acquisition for something that is seasonally driven and in the very heart of our town. How does it make sense? And how is there any benefit to the community having public access when any other private entity that would purchase it is required by law to provide public access?
Great. Thanks, Krista. Jason, go ahead and call on the next person.
Okay, so our next person up is Edwin. Edwin, you can unmute yourself.
I've lost all audio. I'm not sure if you can hear me. If someone that has their camera on can give me a thumbs up that you can hear me. Oh, excellent. Good. I was listening to the minutes of silence of the prior speaker, so I'm thinking that there was something wrong on their side. Anyways, I think this is a very challenging and troubling proposal. I think all of the objectives that are voiced for housing on this spot make sense for the county and the public benefit, but combining them all in one spot, I think, is really troubling. Combining temporary housing in the transition center, combining workforce housing, combining camping, combining public beach access, all in that one space right in downtown of Guerneville, a town that has had such recent revival and coming out of its troubles and becoming a more vibrant tourist destination. I think this could potentially be very harmful for that tourist destination. I don't think that the attraction that that place has today as a tourist destination will be maintained. And sure, we can keep campgrounds open for a part of it, but it will not have the same allure as it does today. And it will also harm the legacy that exists for over 100 years. I think this site should continue as purely a tourism site. And in county hands or in private hands, it has functioned very much as a public space within that town. And I think it should continue to do so. I find it very troubling to try to mix in other interests with what it was today. I don't think they all belong together in one spot.
Thank you, Edwin. Next, we have Carrie.
And Carrie, we can't hear you. I don't know if you're able to unmute. Carrie, are you there? Would you be able to unmute?
Carrie's having some, oh, here she goes.
He.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you now, Carrie. Good to hear from you.
Excellent. Brand new phone, had to work it in. My question, maybe a comment, is in providing a navigation center, we start healing the problem in our town, not as exacerbated. Build it and they will come. Well, they're already here. You know, I'm in the process of offloading a camp that the person there really could have benefited from a navigation center. He, instead of being in the navigation center tonight, is in jail. So think about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Next, we have Adrian Lobby. Adrian, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you showing us the site and pointing out all the various functions of it. Lynda, that was really helpful. According to the census, we have 189, almost 200 homeless people in the West County, Guerneville River area. These people have nowhere to go. They are often on private property, and we have fire danger from them. People constantly complain about the problems that they bring, but you know, they're people. They're just really people. And as a community, we need to do something about it. This is true all over the county, and we're seeing more and more places where people are saying, well, let's give people at least some place to go that's legal. This is a 10-acre site. We're talking, I mean, maybe an acre could be used for homeless people. And I want to remind you all of this very successful park and ride site, which was overseen by West County Community Services. The neighbors basically loved it. I think we're hearing a lot of fear and concern. You know, it's understandable. People don't really understand what a managed camp is like. But I see this as a possible win-win, not only for the individual homeless people, where it would definitely help a huge amount for their lives to have that stability. But I have to tell you that the tiny villages around the coast area, they have problems with tourists coming, wanting to see the tiny villages for homeless people. They actually have to have rules and situations to kind of keep the tourists out. So I can see this actually being a very model for all over the country, really. Come see how a community lives with itself and lives with each other. And we can make it all aesthetically and ecologically gorgeous. So thank you much.
Thank you. Next, we have Kyla Brooke. Go ahead, Kyla.
Hello, thank you so much. Can you hear me, please? Yes?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So I own property where I have regularly housed people who have been unhomed, and I also do low-income housing. I do not believe that using our downtown Grenville Center is an appropriate place to do a navigation center. I think that part of what I see missing in all of these discussions is a conversation about holistic use of space, which has to include local businesses and supporting our local businesses in really appropriate ways. And part of downtown needs to do that. And one of the things that Johnson's Beach has done for so many years is it provides a large space for public recreation and enjoyment. And that's what it should be. I support the idea of having navigation centers, and outside of a floodplain where it's not appropriate. And I also support shelters, tiny houses like Los Guilicos, which was a very successful model. But I really do think that they need to be in a place where there's easy access to medical support. There's easy access to alternative types of living, and it's out of the floodplain, which in the event of a flood, the fire department and sheriff are going to be spending most of their time taking care of people who don't have the access resources to get out of town. And I don't think it's an appropriate use. I would really like to see a private person continue to take over Johnson's Beach and skillfully and thoughtfully work with the local businesses, which at this point,
Thank you.
desperately.
Thank you so much. We're at 2 minutes.
Next, we have Eric Gurn. Eric, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm disappointed that the use for homeless, any type of homeless services is even coming into the question. This community is terribly in tourist dollars, basically are the livelihood of this community. And but I'm reminded of the community meeting that we had 3 years ago, where the community was adamant that we not have homeless services in the downtown Guerneville area, and the community was overwhelming in that response. Yet I live right next door to the homeless service center. So those of you that talk about being, that these are people and yada, 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 I don't disagree. Lynda and I have spoken on numerous occasions about solutions, and Lynda can attest that I'm a big proponent of micro housing, but for the homeless, but there has to be some level of flexibility from governmental agencies to lower permitting costs and to make these things happen. But Johnson's Beach is not a good fit, as people have said. It's too close to the downtown area. The cabins are not functional for winter use. They do flood. And again, to reiterate something that I've used many times that I've already heard in this conversation, if you build it, they will come. And being that I live on Church Street at the corner of 3rd and Church, I've seen an influx of the homeless since the Homeless Service Center came into being. And I'm sorry, the solution for many of you when I've been critical is that I should move. Well, check the last name. I've been here longer than all of you. So that being said, I'm not opposed to solutions. I will talk with any of you about solutions, but turning Johnson's Beach into any sort of service is just, it's a bad choice. It needs to continue to be for tourists. There need to be public access to the river. The community needs those tourism dollars and the tourism influx. And if we provide those services, you're going to see more homeless and less tourists.
Thank you, Eric. Next, we have Tim Miller. Go ahead, Tim.
Sure, thank you and good evening. When I first saw this property, a few things ran through my mind. Number one, the idea that what's currently a private beach run by wonderful people would have greater access. It is true that a private entrepreneur could offer free access, but that's unlikely to happen. And with a regional park, you'd have parking and then free access to the beach, which means regardless of income, all of the Russian River would have access to a beautiful place. I thought that was pretty amazing. Lots of talk about it being a tourist area, which is true, but with that comes largely low-paying jobs. And I have not proposed this, but many have, with the idea of workforce housing, which I support, and this offers an opportunity for that. And I think lastly, outside of COVID, if we search Lower Russian River social media, Guerneville locals, Guerneville up with downtown, etc., probably the number one topic was fire, fear of fire, and rightly so. And if I understand correctly, Chief Baxman has said that up to 20 of the fires that were set this past summer during one of the worst fire seasons in our history was due to people without homes trying to stay warm and cook. And we were approached, our agency, numerous times, find a place for them to go. Well, this wouldn't, as I understand it, not proposed as a homeless shelter, but a navigation center to take people out of the woods, improve public safety, get them stable, and then move them on to permanent housing. And I think for all of those reasons, this is a great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Next, we have Seanette Poe.
Hi. Yes, I just have a couple questions. First off, about the cost of this property, it's 3.7 million. I mean, this is obviously coming out of our pockets, correct? And second of all, what job opportunities are out here for the homeless? I don't quite understand why we're putting homeless people on a beach, or in a beach-like area where there are not a lot of jobs for them. Why are we not creating a more center for people that are homeless that has opportunities for them to go and be able to walk to jobs and be able to apply to jobs that are more available to them? I just feel like this is kind of a huge waste of our taxpaying dollars when like other people have said, this is a vacation rental town, a vacation town, that this is not a town for, hosting homeless people. No offense. Also, on another note, the woman that spoke a couple of times ago about having a center for homeless people that we can go and view, I mean, they're not zoo animals. So I don't quite, I feel like that's like a really bad argument for or reason for why we should have this. I feel that we should focus more of our energy on where we can locate homeless people. They have more opportunities to excel in their life, and not just stick them on a beach in a vacation rental town. So thank you. And also where the money's coming from, because it's my money too. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Seanette. Next, we have Amy. Go ahead, Amy.
Hi, I have been helping out with the homeless around Grenville for maybe about 6 years now. And I've seen different opportunities, different sheltering opportunities. I've seen some of the camps, good ones, bad ones. When people were moved from 3rd Street and ended up in the park and ride, I saw a whole different reality, I might say, of how people could be helped. So when I consider now that Johnson's Beach could possibly hold a navigation center that was something like what we had last year for COVID, I think it's an incredible idea. I know that people that were in the park and ride for that 1 month at the end of July and beginning of August, several of them have been able to go into a better situation because they were able to go through something a little rougher. They weren't ready to quite have a roof over their heads. Even a couple of the people weren't ready to have a tent over their heads in July and August. And I know of 4 people right now who are still at Los Guillicos that got moved from the park and ride. And that was because they got some stability, which they were able to get in the navigation center. And, thinking that somebody can get a job right off the bat, honestly, such a huge population of people living outdoors are not fit to be employed. First, they need to get stabilized. They need to get housed. They need to deal with their mental health. They need to deal with their addictions. Jobs are not something that we need to be looking for. We need to get these people off the streets, safe, and then we can move forward. And wouldn't it be wonderful if Grenville was able to take something like Johnson's Beach and move forward with it into the future and show something that we can do here in this small town that will make a huge difference for so many people here. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Next up, we have Kari Morrissey.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great, thank you. I agree with a lot of the sentiments that I believe that Guerneville and Monte Rio, kind of the surrounding area, is overburdened with homeless people. I think that we have a lot of homeless people in our area that have come from other areas. I think that there is a concerted effort by a lot of law enforcement officers to deposit homeless people in the Guerneville, Monte Rio area. If there were big homeless tents and encampments in the middle of the Healdsburg Plaza, how long do you think they would last? I don't think they would last very long at all. So while I agree that homeless people are people and they need to be treated with compassion and they are deserving of services, I don't believe that we should be the dumping ground for the homeless of Sonoma County. That is how I feel. I feel like we are that. As many of you know, I spend most of my weekends hiking around looking for homeless encampments. I find them regularly. The homeless encampment that Kiri Sorensen just spoke of, the gentleman who had that homeless encampment had a camp full of stolen property. I don't know why it is that he's sitting in jail tonight, but you certainly won't hear any argument from me that that's not where he deserves to be. It was absolutely destroyed. The property was so awful. I posted pictures of it on Facebook. I'm sure that a lot of you have seen them. I provided them to supervisors at the Board of Supervisors. I agree that we need some level of homeless services out here. They certainly should not be in a floodplain on a beach that will attract tourist dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Next, we have John Uniacke. Go ahead, John.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to bring this back to Johnson's Beach. And Johnson's Beach has been around for a long time. It was public for a long time. And while I heard tonight that it is still public access beach, the local owner is creating circles on this beach, going back 30 or 40 feet from the shore and charging rental money for the reserving those positions. He's not the only one that's denying public access on the river. There are others in the general area that are also trying to do that. The law is that the river is public up until a high water line. And I sure would like to see this resolved once and for all. I saw there was a survey recently done on this area, and the high water mark was up around the parking lot. So can we just acquire this beach for public use as it was under the Harrises and let us have a public beach here like Monterey has, and not go into all the other minutia that's above the high water line, which you can deal with on another issue, homeless, rentals. I'm sure those cabins are not suitable for full-time use. And other things on there probably would be better to be removed than to try to keep them there. So let's just move on, try to acquire this beach for public use, and hopefully it will happen. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, John. Next, we have Marcy.
Hi there. I agree with many of the opinions I've been hearing tonight in that we should separate the homeless issue from the park issue. To me, so that it just makes sense to sort of consider them as two separate entities. I'm just wondering if buying the land as public land is tied to it being used as a homeless area or for homeless projects. Is that where the money is coming from? And is that why we have to have the navigation center there? I just would like to know more about like how the funding is gonna happen. And because it seems like most of the other regional parks that are in the area, there's nothing like this there. So I don't see why we would put it in the middle of Grenville either. I think we just let Johnson's Beach be a beach. And like John just said, worry about all the concessions and things in a different conversation. So just wanted to ask that question. Thanks.
Thank you, Marcy. Next, we have Christian Strobel. Go ahead, Christian.
Yes. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. So I just had a couple of things to say. I think there's a few things I think we can all agree on here. One thing is that we need to figure out a solution for the homelessness issue. That's obviously a problem throughout California. The question I have is, or my perspective is that this is just not the right location for it. There are two reasons for that. One, just the cost of it. It's a very expensive way to try and solve a problem like this. There are many more affordable ways that you can do it. And then secondly, it is an area that has, a lot of flooding issues, and also, the cabins, having been in them, are not suitable for year-round workforce housing. So I think those elements are a bit of a pipe dream there. I think it is also, Johnson's Beach is also the heartbeat of a town that does rely on tourism. And I think moving away from tourism in a location like this is a big problem for all the other businesses that rely on tourists being able to have access to the beach and being able to have good, facilities down at the beach. So I really think this needs to stay as a tourist use in the center of town. And then finally, I've generally found that when counties get involved in trying to run businesses and facilities for tourists, it doesn't generally result in a good experience. So, I really think that, having some private ownership here with the beach as public use, but having all the facilities managed in a professional way is very important to make them appealing to tourists. So I think those are the three reasons why I don't think the beach should be something that is acquired by the county or run by the county. Thanks.
Thank you. Next we have Steve Egelman. Go ahead, Steve.
Eagleman, thank you so much. And thank you for sponsoring this and for everyone for taking part in this. It's great to have the conversations. The main thing I want to say is I just want to echo my support for the county buying this property. It's just, as everyone has said, and I think that one thing, like I said, we all agree on is just how important Johnson's Beach is to the community. And I think the best way to steward that for now and for the future is if it's not in private hands, and just there can be in a way that there's no question that the public have access to the parking lot and to the beach areas of that. And again, I understand the laws around that, but again, in the last couple of years, again, mostly because of COVID, it's like this summer, for example, it would have been difficult, if not impossible, for someone just to walk down and use the beach. And I don't really think that's acceptable for our community. I think we all need to have access to that. It's such a key part for us, for the families that have been coming here for years, for the surrounding community, and for all of the history. And again, private ownership, it very often can be altruistic, but that can also come and go. So again, I just wholeheartedly support whatever the county can do to take ownership of this property and ensure that the beach and the parking lot areas are continued to use for that purpose. I would just also add that it is a large property, and I don't know that it's realistic to have a navigation center, a homeless center, worker housing, and all of that on some of that 10 acres, but it seems like one of those 10 acres could be used for some of those more altruistic goals. We can't always be saying not in my backyard. And this is a big, property. And I think there's an opportunity to have a little bit of that there, along with it continuing as a public beach and as sort of such an awesome part of our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Next we have Greg. Go ahead, Greg.
I gotta unmute here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I agree with the last speaker, with Steve, the county purchasing the property. I used to work at the PG&E office for years, so I know how valuable the property is, and I've used it many times. Canoeing, swimming, the jazz and blues fests. I think the public does need to have that guaranteed as access. I've camped at Westside and Durand beaches that the county runs. They're great campsites. The county runs them great. The Steelhead Beach, Sunset Beach, I've used my county pass to use those for canoeing. So I think it's a great move on the county to purchase it. And again, like the last speakers, 10 acres, it's by the sheriff's substation. So, there's other uses, maybe for a navigation center. I think it depends on how that's run, and security and all that, and how many people it can hold, how that complements the winter shelter too. But it's close to the sheriff's station, and I mean, they are separated from the beach. So there's that cliff there that could be fenced off. So I'm sure there's ways to kind of separate things and keep it secure, plus the public access, plus community involvement, maybe like taco trucks or businesses having food stands there. So I'm pretty sure it'd work out for everybody, the local community and local businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Next we have Cleve Jones. Go ahead.
Great, thank you very much. First, I want to say I'm a big supporter of navigation centers. I've seen them work. And I also acknowledge that we have a really urgent need for workforce housing, defined in my mind as housing that is affordable for the folks that come and work in our restaurants and bars and other establishments that serve the tourists. Having said that, though, I just don't think this is the right place for it. It doesn't make sense to me to take really a prime recreational asset for the entire community and have it used for those purposes. And part of that has to do with just the fact that it floods and that those cabins are not insulated, are not suitable for year-round housing. So In my mind, the debate should focus on whether the county should purchase this and operate it as a campground with lodging. I personally have used many county, state, regional parks over the decades and found most of them to be very well run, or whether we want it to be privately run. But as much as I want workforce housing and as much as I support the concept of navigation centers and have seen them work, I just don't think this is the right location. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Cleve. Next, we have Jennifer Wertz.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So I'm not opposed to the public beach aspect of this. And the workforce housing, we desperately need workforce housing. But like a lot of people have brought up, that it's not currently suitable for workforce housing. There would have to be improvements, and there would also have to definitely be contingencies for a flood. The navigation center, I'm opposed to. It's not that I'm opposed to navigation centers. I just don't think it's the right location. It's already kind of overburdened on those 2 blocks between Safeway and the Plaza with issues associated with, you know, the shelter being there and the health center being there. And then there's a couple of like, you know, permanent supportive housing projects kind of there. And, you know, that's right 2 blocks of downtown, a block away from Main Street on the riverside. So I feel like that's just way too much going on. Personally, I don't know how you would even kind of separate all of those things that would be going on if you had a public beach, workforce housing, and a navigation center right there. It's kind of a lot. So I'm kind of wondering what happened to the George's Hideaway idea, because I feel like if we're going to have a navigation center, the big thing is it needs to not be right in the middle of downtown. If you go back to RASAD, where they had meetings after meetings after meetings for months and months and months with community members and service providers in the county, it stated clearly that we don't want to have these things in the downtown area. And when they agreed to the, you know, the winter shelter being a seasonal shelter, there was all this code of conduct stuff that was supposed to happen and was going to be strictly enforced, and none of it was. So, you know, we've had a lot of problems associated with the shelter being right in downtown, and I don't think we should add to that now. So my question is, if we got to pick one or the other, why not George's Hideaway or something that's not right in the middle of downtown? Thanks.
Next up, we have Jeanette Dillman.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Thank you. I realize that the Johnson's Beach is a keystone of the downtown and basically the lower river. It is a keystone property. And I think the public access is essential and the tourist business is essential. And to mix the homeless into that is not a good idea. What I suggest is that Park and Rec take it over, or Land Trust buy it, that it become the focal center for this new trail, which is going up the coast to California. It could be the offices for Park and Rec. They could have a museum there. It could be a big terminal tourist spot for the people who are traveling the trail. I think that's the future for that property. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeanette. Next, we have Brian Hughes. Go ahead, Brian.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, yeah, I guess I'm curious a little bit. I posted this in the Q&A. It's a little unfortunate this conversation kind of got derailed with the navigation center and the workforce housing. I did want to comment that I actually do support the county purchasing the property, but then leasing out the management and the running of the property to a third-party business. You see this all the time. I think, you know, the Chamber and Bob kind of originally proposed this idea. But I think it's a successful idea, and I think it could lend itself to the previous speaker's comment as well, where we could expand the property, add a few community resources to it. But I do think that, you know, finding this nice blend of county-owned property, because it is a, you know, gem of where we live, and then leasing out the businesses and the concessions. And so it sort of looks and feels like it is today. It's just the county leases it to a third-party concession to manage the property and even earn the revenue from it. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And we have Phil Weinstein next. Go ahead, Phil.
Am I live? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So longtime citizen. My family have lived in this town for upwards to 100 years. I would like to see it go to the county. I know that a lot of citizens who are longtime residents have felt a little ostracized to the way the county or the town has become. I know a couple people who have been turned away. Went down to been going to Johnson's their whole life. Went down to put a towel down. Were told to leave, despite it being a public beach. And my concern is if this goes public, when no one turns a blind eye and it's someone's word against the owners, what's to say that's not going to continue to happen? On social media platforms, I've seen a lot of people say that, you know, if it goes public, it's going to ruin it. Everybody's going to show up. My argument to that is that Armstrong Woods has been public, and I can't say that anybody has said that's been ruined by the public. I think that's a heart of the community. I think the people of Grenville and the river need it to be public. I think it's you know, the heart of the town. I mean, it's been fireworks. I remember going when there was a metal slide in the kiddie pool and a footbridge over to Parker's Resort. I mean, I think it is the heart of the community. And I do have a parks pass. I hope it's run something like Dorn Beach, Regal. And if you look at something like Howarth Park, I mean, they deal with tourists. They have boat rentals. They do concession stands, and it's run perfectly well. I just really hope it goes public. And that's about all I have to say on that.
Thank you, Phil. And folks, note that we are only going to allow folks to speak one time on these initial comments, and then you'll be able to speak at the end once again. So Supervisor Hopkins, that's all we have for hands raised.
Thank you very much. And that was pretty much perfectly on time because we promised that we would move on to the next subject at 6:30. Although actually I do see one last minute hand raised from John. And since we do have 2 more minutes, should we go ahead and accept that comment? I see John Schubert raised his hand.
Go ahead, John. John, can you unmute yourself?
Oh, hello, here I are. The primary focus of this conversation for the past hour is about acquiring Johnson's Beach as a public park. For the past, how many decades now? So many projects, so much money has been gone and directed towards the homeless. This is for the tourist industry here of the river. This is the main industry for all the commercial properties, for all the businesses. This is directed to them, and it's in the middle of Guerneville, the heart of Russian River. To have the homeless sharing part of this property will undoubtedly make some of the tourists have second thoughts and move on down the line. This should strictly, and I adhere to this, to have this property, which goes back to the Johnsons, Gertie Johnson, 100 years ago, the Rounds family that had it before the Harrises, and the Harrises, they knew how to run the beach as a public attraction, and everybody did well. They made money. It brought money into the community, not just Guerneville, but up and down the river. We have to think about what is our breadwinner here. It's tourism, not the homeless. We have enough agencies and volunteer organizations working with the homeless. Let's direct now our attention to tourism, our industry that supports business and the working public here. I'm finished.
Thank you very much, John. Before we shift gears here, I do want to just make a couple of points. I think it is actually really important, and I did intend to cover this earlier regarding the public trust doctrine and the engagement with the State Lands Commission. And I recognize that was one of the first things that came up. There is not guaranteed public access for the entire beach unless it is owned by a public park or public entity. The public trust doctrine only applies to the ordinary high water mark. There has not been a formal State Lands Commission study on this particular property, which was noted by one of our community members in the Q&A. However, we do have a letter from the State Lands Commission that they sent back in April that does purport that that would be at 20-foot river height. So, you know, with the dam in, if that sort of 20-foot river height holds, there actually is a substantial portion of the beach that would not necessarily be open to the public unless it were actually owned by a public entity or had a recreational easement, which is actually how we could potentially fund it through the Agricultural Preservation and Open Space District, would be to put a permanent rec easement that would allow and guarantee public access in perpetuity. And then actually the county has an ability to pay for that, which could help provide the funding to acquire the property. I also wanted to add that for complete transparency, we actually were reached out to directly by the State Lands Commission, who suggested they might actually have funding to potentially help the county acquire the site because they have an interest in expanding public access and sort of expanding the public trust. So I just wanted to mention that. There were also a number of comments related to, I think Kyla first brought this up, the holistic use of space and sort of where do we site things generally and alternative options for homelessness. I believe Jen Wertz brought that up as well. And that is coming. That's going to be the next part of our presentation. So stay tuned. We're going to talk a little bit about fire safety, and then we will be talking about infrastructure and homelessness solutions. And you will have an opportunity to chime in on other specific site proposals that could support a navigation center. So with that, I am very, very proud and pleased to introduce Lois Lebovich, who is spearheading the Guerneville Fire Safe Council. And she is going to say a few things about this fantastic local effort to keep our communities more fire safe. And then we're going to go into a bit more information. And I will also mention that if any questions come up, we do have Cindy Foreman, our local fire marshal, here as well to be able to share information and respond. So Lois, I'll hand the mic over to you.
Okay, first of all, we are setting up a fire safe Guerneville. It is not a fire safe council. The state is not dealing with the setting up of councils anymore. That stopped a while ago and they haven't started it up again. So we will operate the same as a council, but it won't be called that. We are working through Roberta McIntyre of Fire Safe Sonoma and the people who are running Fire Safe Occidental and their 501c3 organization called Safer West County, which is an umbrella for the financial and business end of these councils and can be the umbrella for all of the councils that ultimately we hope will be formed in the Russian River. We are going to focus on fire prevention and protection, maintaining communications during emergencies, becoming part of a unified non-political West County fire safe group. And we are hoping that this will spread through each of the districts of the MAC so that Monterey will have one, Cazadero Duncan's Mills, Forestville, Pocket Canyon, Rio Neto, Hacienda, Forestville. So ultimately 7 of these groups in all, but nobody's pressuring them to do anything. And this is just Guerneville. It's Alina Hagler and I. She lives at the top of Old Cazadero Road, and I live in Guernwood to the west of Guerneville. We have been working since the Russian River Fire District set up their brain dead, their fire evacuation planning committee back in November of 2017 after the Tubbs fire. We worked for 2 years, had held public events at the Guerneville school, sent out postcards, sent out all sorts of information. And that gives us a good background for starting up this council. It gives us a step up. By having this group formed, we are all hoping to retain or obtain fire insurance at reasonable rates so that they aren't jacked up 400% like they are in some parts of the state. So it depends on the work that we do once we're formed in order to qualify to keep those low insurance rates for fire insurance. I could go on about this for a long time, but I think that that gives people the basic overview of what we're going to do. We're working with Roberta McIntyre, as I said. We're starting to work with Carleone Stafford, and we've got information coming into us from all sorts of groups. So we have lots of good advisors. Does anybody have any questions about? If they want to find out more about it, they can contact me at my email address. I don't know if you can put that up, or should I just read it out?
Why don't you go ahead and read it out, and then we can also sort of share that, via Facebook or via the Q&A or chat function.
I don't do Facebook.
Okay, so we'll do, right, but we could share it via Facebook. We could just post it. Yeah.
So my name is Lois Lebovich, as you see on the screen. My email is LM, as in Margaret, Lebovich @yahoo.com. And we'd be glad to help tell you what we're doing and what we need help with. We are also working with the vegetation management proposals that have been sent into the county. So
great.
Lots.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lois.
Okay.
And it looks like Jason already shared your email address via the chat. And so
Thank
I would
you.
just encourage everyone to follow up with Lois, because she is doing great work. And it really does take the whole community coming together to really meaningfully reduce our fire risk. So thank you so much for your leadership, Lois. And I would encourage any members of the community interested in this work to email Lois as she suggested.
Thank you.
Great. So with that, that is a great transition over to fire prevention and firefighting offensives. We are making tremendous investments in firefighting, and we are going to be making more. I think that it's really important to know that we are coordinating very closely right now between state and local agencies. And in Guerneville, that means CAL FIRE. And I'm really grateful for the leadership of our Chief Ben Nichols, who has a lot of familiarity and background in the area, grew up here, and has been absolutely an amazing resource when it comes to figuring out where we need to put shaded fuel breaks in order to keep our communities safe. So in addition to partnering with CAL FIRE, we are also working to provide ongoing support to local fire districts and to support consolidation efforts. And out here, I think that one of the most important efforts to mention is that I was able to secure $3 million a year of ongoing funding in order to facilitate the consolidation of Bodega Bay Fire Protection District with Sonoma County Fire Protection District, which is who represents the lower Russian River right now, Sonoma County Fire District. So that sort of influx of funding will really start to create a really big and powerful entity in West County that covers not only local fire response, but also our emergency medical services, which is why I wanted to mention that. And now I'm actually going to be handing it over to Leo to go a little bit into more detail on the vegetation management. And I do want to say that I don't always put on my boxing gloves, but I definitely did for this one. And I worked really hard and fought very hard to try to pull additional funds into West County. So what you're going to hear about are some millions of dollars that we will be investing specifically to reduce our wildfire risk and to create buffers around our communities. I also want you to know that we have stepped up and we have invested in new wildfire cameras. And I am also just want to give a shout out, even though it's not a county effort, I want to extend my gratitude to Josh Leone and the folks over at Watch Duty, which has been a great resource for those of us who track wildfire in real time. So if you haven't checked out that app, please do check it out. Zero credit goes to government. All of it goes to these awesome community information officers and folks who've been working around the clock to make sure that real-time information is going out. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Leo to talk a little bit about vegetation management.
Great, thanks so much, Lynda. Yes, I've been working really closely with the Ag and Open Space District on this vegetation management grant program. With Ag and Open Space, we've been also closely working with the forester at Permit Sonoma, as well as with CAL FIRE. So it's been a great experience to be part of this vegetation management grant making process. And on this map here, Ag and Open Space created this map for us, drilling down onto the projects that are in West County. The green dots are projects that were able to be funded through the grant making process that has gone forward. And the orange circles are those sites that are basically projects that are essentially pending. There are projects where they did not comply with California Environmental Quality Act rules, but there's a path forward where Permit Sonoma, Ag and Open Space District are working with the organizations that made the proposals to go through a process that would allow these projects and the work in these communities to move forward and follow CEQA, the Environmental Quality Act. So that's happening through basically going through a vegetation management treatment planning process. So it's VTP for short. And I know that I was fortunate enough to go and visit some of the sites, for example, the Guerneville site and the Rio Neto site, along with CAL FIRE and with the departments, and really got a chance to see what the community needs really were. And I definitely want to thank Chief Ben Nichols for kind of highlighting the big picture plan on what are the most important things that can be done that will keep West County safe in the case of a fire. And I'm really looking forward to the work that Ag and Open Space District will be leading with our communities coming up. Finally, I just have one brief slide that was shared with me about the types of projects that are moving forward with this funding that the Board of Supervisors allocated for vegetation management. 41% of the grant awards were for fuel breaks and understory treatments. 29% was for defensible space and treatment in burned areas. And then 9% was for prescribed fire and grazing. So these are the kinds of things that we'll be seeing. I actually didn't put the dollar amount forward, but thanks to the board, there is $3 million that is specifically for addressing the needs that were identified by the orange conditionally pending projects. So yeah, so I'm really excited to share that work with you. Thanks for allowing me to go through that.
Thank you so much, Leo. And before we get to the comments and questions section, we are going to go a little bit into the big picture infrastructure. So one of the things that we are working on is in a Western Emergency Resource Center, and this would be something that could involve a new fire station, as well as opportunities for flood and fire resilience, pre-positioning of disaster and emergency supplies. This is also the kind of thing that could actually help us in an earthquake. In addition to providing for emergency response and even potentially sort of an emergency operations center or incident command center light for West County, we could also provide space for community meetings and community gatherings, which we know is always in short supply in the Guerneville area. So the county is looking actively for space that kind of a facility could be brought forward. And it's also worth noting there could be a really wonderful partnership potentially between Sonoma County Fire District and the Sheriff's Office, where we could actually co-locate both a new sheriff substation and a new fire station. I want to note that actually our most critical resources in West County are unfortunately located in unreinforced masonry buildings, which means that under an earthquake, scenario, we actually could lose a substantial amount of our emergency response equipment and also endanger our personnel. And that is true for the Guerneville station, it is true for the Monterio station, it is true for the Cazadero station, and it is true for the sheriff's substation. So one of my top priorities is really trying to identify a location where we could build a new sort of disaster response center, unique and specific to West County and the Lower Russian River. Additionally, we are looking for a site for a navigation center. One of the challenges, and we'll get into this in a little bit, is that when we come to a homeless encampment and we come to trying to place folks and trying to make sure that those homeless encampments are not posing a public safety or health threat, we actually do need a place to put folks, and that's a legal requirement that we'll get into that in a little bit. And then the other need, which we talked about earlier, was potential more public access to the river, more parking at the river, because we continue to see a lot of our beaches just being really jam-packed and needing to have more access points as the visitors increase. And we've certainly seen a visitor increase every single year that I have been in office, and that is actually data that's tracked by regional parks. So with that, we're going to shift over to the encampments discussion to dive a little bit into more the state of homelessness in the Lower Russian River and potential solutions going forward. And I want to mention that we are bringing these topics together because there is unfortunately a nexus between wildfire risk and the homeless encampments that we see in our unincorporated areas. And unfortunately, we have experienced fires that began in homeless encampments. And we all know that if a wildfire gets out of control, it can potentially pose a risk for our entire communities in the Lower Russian River. So we're going to kick this off with some polling questions. So you're going to have an opportunity to go ahead and answer some questions, just a sort of quick start about how you feel about homelessness in the Lower Russian River. So we're going to go ahead and pull that up right now. And we'll take a little brief break while everyone goes ahead and answers those questions. Jason, how are we doing on those results?
We're moving right along. We're at 60% participation and folks are still answering. Still trickling in. We'll give it a few more seconds and then we'll end the poll and display the results. Okay, here are our results.
Great. So I do see overwhelmingly folks are frustrated or concerned by the homelessness that exists in the Lower Russian River. This is consistent with what we hear on a regular basis from constituents. Also top concerns regarding trash. And also folks are saying that increasingly the Lower Russian River is not affordable for families and locals. And while the first two were by overwhelming over 90% majorities, this one had a 55% majority saying that the Lower Russian River is not affordable for families and locals. 15% said yes, it is, and 30% were unsure. So thank you all so much for sharing your thoughts on that. I promise that we will get into more detailed questions later regarding specifically how you feel about different sites that could provide solutions to the homelessness that we are experiencing in the Lower Russian River. So I want to start off with kind of what we're going to cover in this discussion. I'm going to provide a really brief status overview of the legal constraints that are faced by local governments when we try to address homelessness, and then also looking a little bit at what services we already do provide so that you can kind of familiarize yourself with the county's current strategy. Then we'll be starting to talk about possible solutions, which I hope is where we can really hear from you. What are the solutions that you support? We did have a smaller meeting in person earlier this year on the topic of homelessness, really looking at the neighbors who had been sort of impacted by the downtown encampment and also by the park and ride encampment. And out of that meeting, there was sort of a coalescing of the community sentiment around support for a few things. And a couple of those were Laura's Law and also drug court, as well as potentially looking for a navigation center site. But the question, of course, always is where to put it. And we will get to that in just a little bit. So I'm going to start off by talking about the legal constraints. First of all, I want you to know that unfortunately, the county has no jurisdiction over private property. If there are homeless encampments on private property, it is the responsibility of the private property owner to file a writ of no trespassing with the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office and then coordinate with law enforcement in order to enforce that no trespassing writ. What we can do on the county side of things is that in the past, we have provided supervised adult crews to help with cleanup. But ultimately, again, it is the purview of the private property owner. So it's important that we have an opportunity to work with those private property owners to educate them about their rights and then to provide whatever support we can to provide and to also coordinate closely with the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office. When it comes to public property, the sort of legal landscape is actually ever changing, and it has become actually increasingly difficult to meet the requirements to move forward with clearing an encampment on public property. What it really boils down to is this, and we've got some references to case law that you're welcome to look up afterwards, but we really need to demonstrate that we have offered every single person in that encampment a reasonable and acceptable alternative to them before we move forward with clearing the encampment. So that means offering them a place to stay that meets their needs. It also means that we cannot just, get rid of their property, right? So we now have storage facilities, for instance, where we can store people's property. And so we're not, just disposing of everything that someone has in the world. So there are sort of these different steps that we have to take as a county. And I'm going to go into that in a little more detail here. Before we jump into the process of an encampment clearing, I do want to show you a slightly overwhelming slide. And this is just sort of, if you ever feel like, oh my goodness, the county is doing nothing about homelessness, here is actually what the county is doing to try to address the rampant homelessness that we see in Sonoma County. We are actually trying to pull together a very broad coalition of services from within our county and also within our community partners, so that all of these folks have access to the same information when they are meeting with a client, right? We're trying to create a no wrong door approach, which means that you can sort of reach out to any of these organizations and get into the continuum of care system. And it also means that for the first time, we actually aren't siloing information. It used to be that the same person would ping between different county departments and different county agencies, and those county departments and county agencies would not actually be coordinating with one another on this person's care. The person was much more likely to fall through the cracks. Well, we are now trying to create wraparound supportive services to really meaningfully get folks out of the challenging circumstances that they find themselves in and ultimately onto a path to self-sufficiency. So that is kind of the sort of idea of Access Sonoma, and you can read this slide. We're happy to post it later if you want more details. Now moving on to our IMDT, which is our I'm going to get this acronym wrong. Basically a multidisciplinary team. I think it might be interdepartmental multidisciplinary team if I get it right. And the whole point of this is to actually provide, again, that coordinated strategic outreach to an encampment. So, first there's a referral. We hear from the community that there's an encampment, right? And someone notifies us. And then we send out, start to send out our outreach team. And if you go to the next slide there, we develop an action plan to figure out how we're going to clear the encampment and to ensure that we are coordinating with local service providers in our sort of outreach and our service provision. And then after we have offered services to every single resident of the encampment, then we go forward with noticing, and then we ultimately move forward with enforcement. After that, we do have an after action report process, and and we then move on to the next encampment. And I will say that sometimes this can happen very quickly. Sometimes this process can take 8 months because we have a limited number of resources and we are constantly triaging between which encampment is the top priority within the county. I will also add that I have fought very hard, and I have brought it up at multiple public meetings, that we need to consider wildfire risk when we are triaging these encampments. And that when we have encampments that are in high wildfire severity zones, where we know that there are open flames being utilized, that encampment needs to rise to the top of our triage list. That's something we continue to work on. Next up, I want to talk a little bit about the navigation center as a solution. I think it's really important to recognize that a navigation center is not an end point. It is really an entry point. The goal is not for someone to stay at a navigation center forever. It is actually to establish a trusting relationship with this human being and to try to find them a more permanent place to live, right? Permanent supportive housing, affordable housing, what they are ready for, when they are ready for it. So it is really that entry point. It also can provide stability, right? Some of the challenges in the past that we've had with our winter shelter is that people were kicked out of that place at like 7 a.m. And in my opinion, that's inhumane. And then of course, those folks huddled on the stoops of businesses because they had nowhere else to go to try to get a little bit warm, to try to get out of the rain. So giving folks a 24/7 place to be and to exist is really life-changing for them. And I hope that all of you have an opportunity to volunteer at the Guerneville Vets Hall and to also see the evolution of that. We've actually had a 24/7 shelter in Guerneville for the last 22 months because during COVID, that became a 24/7 shelter. And I can tell you that it is such a different thing than it was before when people had to sort of come in all at once, grab dinner, get to sleep, and then get kicked out the next morning. People actually have more stability in their lives. And I think that the relationships that they have with their service provider and just the atmosphere and the environment has really markedly changed. So I would encourage you to volunteer and to sort of check that out. With that, the next one that I want to discuss is Laura's Law, which is a law that was passed in California, and it's our version of assisted outpatient treatment. It basically allows courts to sort of have treatment as a condition of living in a community. We have not yet adopted Laura's Law, implemented Laura's Law in Sonoma County because we haven't yet stood up the program, but I certainly think that it's something that we need to investigate when we are considering homelessness solutions. Drug court, homeless court, mental health court. These are other options and alternatives. It really requires a partnership between the DA's office, the probation department, the county, and the sheriff's office in order to really succeed. And there is an opportunity, I believe, to expand on existing programs and to bring back programs that the county used to have regarding this. Essentially, you have an opportunity to then refer folks to the Drug Abuse Alternative Center. And again, this is a way of really trying to strongly encourage and incentivize and ultimately sort of pretty much order folks to go ahead and get the treatment that they need in order to be out in our community. Transitioning then to possible locations for our navigation center and for other sort of uses and infrastructure needs in the community. Number one, the Bank of America building is for sale, right? It is currently rented both by West County Community Services and by West County Health Centers, as well as the County of Sonoma. We are concerned that if this building were to sell and we were to be kicked out, that we wouldn't be able to have the mental health support services that we have there that allow us to then have a mobile support team out in West County. So this is actually a really critical function for the county. And so should the county purchase this so that we can guarantee services and that we can have a local assistance center site? We use the Bank of America building multiple times after floods and fires to provide that local assistance center for the community. George's Hideaway is also for sale, and the county is also considering the acquisition of that property potentially for a navigation center. We also own the Vets Hall already, and so that's also another option for a potential navigation center site. We also talked earlier about Johnson's Beach, and I do also want to mention that there is a property on Laughlin Road that was on the closed session calendar for the Board of Supervisors to consider some number of weeks ago. That is not being considered for a navigation center. That would be considered for what we were discussing earlier, which was the need for a replacement fire station and sheriff substation. But I did want to, in the interest of transparency, mention that property as well, even though it is not on the list, because it's sort of with that different use. So with that, I want to go ahead and shift into the polling questions. This is going to be your opportunity to actually provide some feedback on the potential locations for navigation centers. So we're going to go ahead and bring that up. 6 questions, and we'll give you a little bit of time because this one I think requires a little more thought and kind of mental negotiation to answer these questions. And then we'll get into the comments and questions. And I will just note one small typo. It is Laura's Law and not Lori's Law. So, but I am guessing that everyone got that. Question number 5 is Laura's Law.
Full update, we are at 65% participated, 83 out of 127, and folks are still responding, so we'll give them a little bit longer. Okay, it looks like folks have stopped, so here are our results.
So it looks like we have 2/3 support for George's Hideaway as a homeless shelter and navigation center. We do have 61% support for the park and ride, 20% opposition for George's Hideaway, 14% unsure. And for the park and ride, it was 26% opposition and 13% unsure. For the Guerneville Vets Hall, we have 40% folks supporting that as an option, 43% in opposition, and 17% unsure. And then with respect to the Bank of America building, we have, just trying to see that, 32% in support, 46% in opposition, and 22% unsure. With respect to Laura's Law, that was 58% in support and 6% not in support, 37% unsure. We probably need a little more detailed information. I recognize I'm trying to move as quickly as I can in order to provide some time for public comment. With respect to drug court, we do see very strong support for that. 72% support drug court, 3% oppose, and 24% are unsure. So with that, I would like to transition over to public comment. And I also want to recognize that we do have Chief Nichols here, as well as Cindy Foreman, our fire marshal, are both in attendance. And I really, really appreciate both of you being here to answer any questions from the community. I just wanted to open it up in case either of you would like to make a few remarks, just to maybe highlight some of the things that I have said, go into a little more detail, or share any thoughts before we open it up to public comment.
Thank you, Supervisor Hopkins. I think there's been a lot of good dialogue tonight. I think that there's a lot of good perspectives, and we're asking a lot of the right questions. We obviously have some challenges out in our river area, and we want to work collectively with Supervisor Hopkins' office, with CAL FIRE, with our community leaders, with West County Services, and make sure that we are trying to address some of the desperate needs we have out in that community. There is a lot of dialogue out in the community, both through social media and word of mouth, that is assigning every single fire out there that happens to the homeless or the unhoused. And we have to be careful with that, because that's not an accurate account. And Chief Nichols is on tonight, and something that I want to make really perfectly clear is that the entire Russian River area is under what we call the SRA, the State Responsibility Area, the Wildland Urban Interface. And for any fire that starts in the vegetation, the cause and origin for investigating that fire is the responsibility of CAL FIRE. And they've done an amazing job. They are our partner. We work collectively with them. But that is their responsibility. And they are the ones who should be commenting on what, if any, they come up with cause and origin on these fires. And I'll let Chief Nichols speak to that. We want, as your local fire district, please reach out to us if you have questions or concerns. We're there for you. And we are certainly the first responders. But what we have to understand is that we work hand in hand with our state partners, and Chief Nichols will, explain sort of how that dichotomy works. We just want to encourage the public to be heads up, to be cognizant of what their surroundings are. And so just grateful to have Chief Nichols on. Chief?
Thank you, Cindy, and District 5 team members and Supervisor Hopkins. As we come into our most critical month of the summer, obviously, there's a lot of anxious folks out there about what the final month, hopefully, of fire season 2021 looks like. And just to put some perspective to the crowd tonight, I know that there's a lot of concern on the river and across the county as a whole. And while unhoused population has definitely been attributed to fires across the county, and it's not a deal that just the lower river is dealing with. It is from Sonoma to Cloverdale to Petaluma and back out to the river. But for the overall discussion, to date this year, CAL FIRE has responded to 33 fires between Guerneville and Monte Rio, and approximately 10 of them have been in or near unhoused populated encampments. So while it is definitely 10 fires is 10 fires, it's not the overall problem or fire activity that we're having on the river. And just keep in mind that there's many different causes to wildland fires, and some of the snapshot for those 33 fires are obviously campfires or debris fires, but also we had the lightning series that came through, as well as a handful of fires attributed to vehicles on the east side of Rio Neto. So there is a concern on our part, and we look forward to working with the various agencies to address open flame in areas where there's not supposed to be open flame, and it's not individual's property to be able to be having that fire. Under the Public Resources Code, individuals are not supposed to have a campfire on property that is not their own or in a sanctioned campground. So that's where we ask the public to be vigilant out there and be aware of fires that should not be in locations, and report that so that we can extinguish that fire before it escapes the campfire status and becomes a wildfire. With that, I'll open it up to any comment or questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Nichols. And I also want to apologize. It was actually Division Chief Foreman. I didn't get the title right earlier. And I do also want to acknowledge that now we're going to be opening it up to questions and comments from members of the public. So you can go ahead and raise your hand. And if there are questions that are appropriate for Chief Nichols or Chief Foreman to answer, we will sort of allow a little bit of back and forth in order to get that information out. I also do want to acknowledge that in addition to Chief Foreman and Chief Nichols and our other panelists, we actually have quite a few department heads at the county who are just listening in. So your comments matter, and we've actually got a lot of ears listening. We have our Transportation and Public Works Director, Health Services. We have also the CDC, as well as regional parks and the Ag Preservation and Open Space District. So they are all listening to your feedback in order for it to inform their work going forward. And we also have a number of local organizations that are represented as well. West County Health Centers, West County Community Services, Friends and Residents of Guerneville, Russian River Alliance. All of these folks are listening in and are part of the conversation. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And with that, we will go ahead and transition it over to our public comment and questions. Jason, you want to take it away?
Sure thing, Supervisor. The first hand raised is Krista. Go ahead, Krista.
Yeah, hey, thanks. This is in regards to navigation center placement, and I have always been a fan of the Georges Hideaway project and that property. I think it's plenty close to town. I think it's like 1.1 mile, so it's walkable. I also think it's easy for a shuttle service. And I think that there's a lot more to be done on that property for a lot less of a ticket price. I don't know if everybody is privy to the numbers, but 3.7 million at Johnson's Beach doesn't pencil. So I feel like it's a taxpayer money. If we're going to try to get the bang for our buck here, we should be thinking about this in a much more holistic sense of buying a property that doesn't flood like George's. That's also not right smack in the middle of our tourist destination. That's not going to be compounding issues with drug use and such with families and children having access to a beach. So I think that that's certainly something to be explored much more deeply at George's. And I think it would be a much better use of our funds and a much better place to have this. So you have my full support on that. And I'm certainly happy to help with ideas on that. I feel like coming back to, as it relates also for fire safety, I think that property is quite cleared and again, out of the public's eye. And there's a lot of opportunity also for, tent camping or micro housing and all of those things on George's. It just seems like a much more ideal location. And it's not something that's seasonal where we're going to displace people when the floodwaters come, because we all know they come. That's what I've got to say.
Thank you so much, Krista.
Is this,
Yes.
sorry, I apologize. Is this a place where we can comment as officials on this?
Absolutely. If you have a thoughts on George's or on fire risk that would be relevant to share, please do.
Yeah, thank you so much, Supervisor Hopkins. I just want to make a quick comment that I appreciate your thoughts on this, on George's Hideaway. And I just want to let the community know that my staff, as well as myself, have gone out and met with West County Services and looked at the site and provided comments and feedback. There's pros and cons, obviously, with every site that we look at. But I just want to let you know that we're working actively, not only with the county, but with also West County Services in looking at this site as a potential unhoused and site for those that are needy in our community. So I just wanted to let you know, as a fire district, we have been in active communication and met out on site about this. Thank you.
Thank you for letting us know that. I really appreciate that. So it looks like we've got our next hand raised.
It's Carrie Morrissey. Go ahead, Carrie.
Thank you. I just wanted to let everyone know that while this meeting has been going on, I received information that there was a homeless encampment fire being put out by the Monte Rio Fire Department underneath the bridge there by the Russian River on Moscow Road. While the meeting was going on, I stood up from my desk, got in my car, drove over there, looked at the area. I'm very familiar with all of the folks that work with the fire departments, and they usually let me look at it and take some pictures. I did that. So you won't see that fire, I don't think, on Pulse Point. I don't know that you'll see it on Watch Duty either. I also wanted to point out that yesterday morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, there was another one near the amphitheater in Monte Rio. Someone had tried to build some kind of a warming fire in the base of a tree. Such a great idea. And that had to be put out also. So just within the last 24 hours, we've had 2 of them. And so my question for all of you folks is, if I find a homeless encampment, for example, underneath the Monte Rio Bridge, if I go and I find that, which you can find on any given day, quite frankly, how do I get help? Who do I call who will come and clear those people out of that camp? That area in particular underneath the bridge on Moscow has been the site of numerous encampment fires. I don't know how many over the years, maybe 10, 20. So I know how to handle it on private property, but please tell me, what support does the community have for county property encampments? Thank you.
So hearing nobody jump up, I'll put it out there that if you discover a fire, as I indicated earlier, that is not on an individual's property that they own, it is illegal under the burn suspension to be having that fire. So your appropriate number to get somebody 24 hours a day is 911, and you'll report that to the Redcom dispatch center, and they will dispatch fire resources and extinguish the fire if it is a fire that is not a legal fire to be had.
And just to tag on to Chief Nichols, that call did come in as a fire investigation, so it did come in through our dispatch center. So crews were dispatched. I don't have information on the details of the call, but just so you know, that did come in through our dispatch center.
And one quick thing to tie into Chief Foreman's statement is one thing that caught my mind is there's a lot of thought to jump to a transient or a unhoused person as related to a campfire. And so I want to remind the public that there are many different reasons why people are going to be having campfires. It could be kids playing or having a fort in the base of a tree. So it's where it's critical for us to respond to the fire and conduct that origin and cause investigation to determine what the actual cause of that fire was. But just because there's a campfire does not necessarily mean that it was caused by an unhoused individual.
I appreciate that. And to add to the answer, I would also encourage folks, we are working on gathering data on rural homeless encampments utilizing SoCo Reported. So please do use SoCo Reported to sort of geographically tag where the location of in the encampment that you see, and then also follow up via email. This is something that we, will collect and forward and send to our HEART and IMDT team. And also our local service providers. Again, unfortunately, it's not something that can be addressed overnight because of the legal requirements surrounding service provision and noticing. So it does take time. And because of limited resources, we are sort of triaging which encampments are, the most critical to address as quickly as possible. But please do utilize SoCo Reported and also email our office so that we are aware as well. Do we have our next person with their hand raised? I do see Greg. If we can let him unmute.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I got two questions. One is defensible space. When the CDF had that property, I guess we had to pay a certain amount every year for CDF coverage on our properties, and I was given a citation or for an inspection from CDF to inspect my property for defensible space. And the guy, I called CDF, the guy came out, my property was clear, but my neighbor's property trees were overhanging my fence and like 10 feet away from my building. He said that was okay. So my first question is like on defensible space on locally owned private property. And I think that's an issue we've got in Guerneville. And my second question is on the homeless and the numbers of those who really who can use assistance and those who do not. I think the main problem we've had downtown are the number of people who don't want assistance, want to kind of stay messed up all day and will refuse assistance, whatever we do. So I think a lot of people, I think the navigation centers, no matter where they are a good thing. But what can we do with the ones who do want to just spend their time out in the woods? I think that's the main problem that we have to address, enforcement or something. All right, thank you.
Well, I will jump in and say that I agree with you. There is that demographic of those that will choose and continue to choose to not accept services and want to live off the radar and out of touch. But what we found is the majority do want to accept resources and support. And I will say, I will go on public record saying this: sanctioned camps, sanctioned homeless situations, they work. They absolutely work. And I may not be popular by saying that. And I'm not saying that this is a perfect scenario out in the river area for this, but I am telling you that from all of my work in this industry, sanctioned camps do work. The park and ride is a good example of that. And there was a lot of controversy over that site, and I was heavily involved in that. And there was an alternate site that I actually put my rubber stamp on and said, no, I'm not comfortable with that. And the park and ride became a good option for that. And I'm not saying that's the ultimate solution. I'm just going on record saying that I believe that when we put these sanctioned camps in, that they do work. With that being said, and I'll refer to Chief Nichols on this, you know, we're talking about a couple different codes, and we're talking about the public resource code, which applies to when you're talking about the vegetation question you asked, when we're talking about vegetation requirements and mandated inspections and all of those things. So the public resource code does address that sort of 100-foot defensible space law. The gap with 4291, which is the public resource code, is that it doesn't address unimproved parcels, where Sonoma County adopted an ordinance back in 2017 called 13A, which actually filled that gap of unimproved parcels were actually required to do some minimal clearance. And so we've sort of been working toward that, and we've got a long way to go. I'm not going to lie to you. We've got a long way to go, and there are some real gaps in what we really need to require of property owners and how we really hold their feet to the fire to, you know, ensure that their properties are maintained and be sure that they're not just protecting their home, but their neighbors, right? Because it's not just about our own homes. We know that homes can become fuel for other fires, right? So the 4291 Public Resource Code, which is likely what you're referring to some time ago, didn't necessarily address that vacant parcel right next to you. And maybe it wasn't a vacant parcel. I'm just sort of, you know, speculating here. But there's still we still have very minimal requirements, frankly, at the state and local level. I'm just going to be honest with you. And we need to start getting more aggressive about what we're asking and demanding of property owners when it comes to vegetation management. And that is not to put a bad light on what our public officials are trying to do at their level. It's a really hard move to make. So Chief Nichols, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think you hit it mostly, Chief. Just that the 4291, as it relates to CAL FIRE's defensible space requirements, require the landowner to go to their property line. They are not required or obligated to clear onto somebody else's property, because obviously you end up with potential for litigation and all of that. But as Chief Foreman put out there, 13A is the bridge between 4291 and what folks can do to protect their neighbors' properties. So definitely look into 13A and inspections from the county.
Thank you for that information. And I would just add on the service side and acknowledge that, yes, there are folks who are, hesitant to accept services, right? And sometimes will outright reject them over and over again. And what I have seen is that consistency and being there when people are ready to accept services, and also having established trusting relationships with service providers, that's really what makes the difference. I will also say that a tough love approach can assist in that. When we look at, I think back to the Joe Rodota Trail clearing, right? And when we first cleared the massive encampment that existed on the Joe Rodota Trail, there were certain people who accepted services and many more who didn't, right? And then that sort of same group of folks, they went to another location, and we again followed them to that location. And again, we offered services. And again, we noticed then that we were going to be going forward with clearing the encampment, more accepted services. And then that happened again on a third location, and even more accepted services. So I think that consistent service provision, trusted community partners like West County Community Services, and just being ready when the person is ready to accept services, we have to have those services available. We have to have a bed for them. We have to have a place where they are willing to go. That I think is the sort of tough work and good work and magic that it really takes to get folks into housing. And I also want to acknowledge some of the community members who have played critical roles. Adrian, there are folks who have dedicated huge amounts of their life to establishing relationships with our unhoused, unsheltered residents and actually sort of assisting them into getting services. And so that also matters. Having a friendship with someone, knowing that someone cares about you, that often is the breaking point that allows someone to actually decide, yes, I'm going to take this scary step. I'm going to accept that housing and I'm going to move forward, or I'm going to go into treatment, which I know I need, but I just wasn't quite ready to do it. So that's all really important. And I also wanted to mention that I forgot when I was acknowledging organizations that we do also have the Russian River Chamber of Commerce here. So I just want to give a shout out to the Russian River Chamber and thank them for their work and their feedback on this issue as well. So with that, we can go ahead to the next person who has their hand raised. I don't know if Jason, if you see who that is, I'm juggling my screens here.
Adrian, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I just want to thank you for speaking about the reality of the fires. We see stereotypes about homeless people all the time, all over the county. One of the big ones is they come from somewhere else. They aren't really our people. I can tell you every single neighborhood feels this, and it's statistically just not true. But the fire one is kind of particular to West County. I see people's fears and that really kind of quick knee-jerk thing. There's a fire, it must be a homeless person who started it. So I really appreciate the reality check. It's complicated. And I want to talk about Laura's Law. I notice I am in the great minority in saying I oppose Laura's Law. This is because I have had many friends who are part of the mental health system, and the coercion that can go around Laura's Law and other laws like that say, you have to take your meds. You have to take your meds. These medications have pretty extreme side effects. And for some people, they're devastating side effects. So I really oppose forcing people to take them. I understand there's some people that you just despair of. It feels like their mental illness keeps them from having a reasonable life. And if they would just take their meds, they would have a better life. And just because you care about them, you want them to take their meds. But that take their meds motto can encompass a lot of abuse and a lot of coercion. And I oppose Laura's Law. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that perspective, Adrian. Appreciate it. Do we have any other hands raised? I am not seeing any other hands at this point in time, but I would encourage folks, because we are about to wrap up the meeting up. I do see one or two shifting around. I do see Denise, and I briefly saw Jen, but then it went away.
Go ahead, Denise.
Hi there. I'm hoping that Supervisor Hopkins can speak to the measure, I believe it was Measure O funding that just started for mental health, and the possibility that we would expand quite a bit the number of long-term beds in mental health facilities. I believe there's 14 or 16 you've targeted to start at the end of this year, but that's just the tip of the iceberg based on what we see around our neighborhood as far as the people that appear to be quite mentally ill and have been on the streets for a long time. So I'm hoping that that is something that we're expanding quickly and will be able to be using by the end of the year, but I'm not sure that that detail's been released, and I'm hoping that we can get some more information on it.
Thank you so much for that question, Denise. So I don't have the slides available to share on my screen right now, but if you go to the August 31st Board of Supervisors meeting, it was item number 25 on the agenda. And I would encourage you to look through that slide presentation because it has kind of a highlight of the different programs that we will be investing in. This was really sort of a first high-level glimpse, and we do have two supervisors. I am not on this committee, but Supervisor Chris Corsi and Supervisor James Gore are working very closely with staff and with community partners to identify the particular projects and programs that we want to invest in. One thing that I do want to mention is that the county for quite some time has had a mobile support team. You might have heard a lot about the CAHOOTS model up in Portland. We essentially had sort of an early version of that is really honestly in need of updating to be more robust and to be able to respond honestly more to the challenges that we see in our unsheltered population and in encampments around the county. So we're actually working with a few cities who are going to be piloting new versions of that program. And then based on how those go over the course of this next year, we'll sort of identify a model that can be expanded county-wide. to really sort of increase our mobile crisis mental health services that are available in the lower Russian River and throughout the county. And that was something that I had worked hard originally when I first got on the board. We actually didn't even have mobile support team out in West County. It only went along the 101 corridor. We do now have that service, but I think that it needs updating and sort of refreshing. So right now, just really quickly, 22% of the Measure O funds are currently slated to go towards behavioral health facilities, 44% to emergency psychiatric and crisis services, 18% to mental health and substance use disorder outpatient services, 14% to behavioral health, homeless care and coordination, and 2% to transitional and permanent supportive housing. But there are a lot more details in that item, which again is item 25 from the August 31st Board of Supervisors hearing. And we haven't formally sort of finally decided on exactly how that money is going to be spent. So I would also encourage you to take a look at that. And if you have any questions or any feedback, to let us know as we work to finalize the different requests for proposals and things that we will be issuing as part of that process. So I hope that answers your question. And if there's anything more added in the Q&A, and I can follow up there. It looks like Amy has her hand raised.
Hi. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I know I spoke, in support of Johnson's Beach, but basically, I just really want a navigation center in Grenville. I think George's Hideaway is an absolutely perfect location also. But, I kind of like the idea of the beach being public and all that. So that's one thought. And also, with Carrie Morrissey's comment earlier about the fires, I have my concerns that I've been let known about the camper that's come back, and was back apparently in his camp spot, and I'm really concerned. I don't believe that camp spot was marked off, protected from him returning. I worry about it every single time I drive by there. And it scares me that we don't have better representation and protection out here, and I just need to voice that. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, for sharing that. Jennifer Wirtz, I believe, is next. And Jason,
Hi,
are
can
you
you hear me?
there? Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I just want to say Carrie Morrissey lives here, and she's been walking encampments, and she's been responding to fires, and she's not an idiot. She knows what she saw tonight, so I feel a little bit upset that she was dismissed. Like, oh, it's not really homeless encampments. I believe her. She lives here. Respectfully, some of the people that are speaking don't live here. We live here every day with all these fires and the fire trucks going by. We live in fear every time we hear them. And we've had a lot of homeless encampment fires. We've had businesses burned down by homeless people, and we knew it before the investigation was, finalized or whatever. But let's be clear about something. If a fire burns down our town, we cannot help anyone. And I want to say that, it's not, we tend to always expect the county supervisor who allocates money and the fire department to fix all of this. We have a law enforcement problem. That's really important to acknowledge. Our sheriff's department, our permit Sonoma agency, and our DA's office hasn't been doing their job. And we put it all on you guys, and that's not fair. So, our current sheriff is not running for re-election. Cool, because he kind of sucked. But we have a DA candidate that's interested in doing like drug court. And I'm setting up a meeting with her on Sunday for anybody that wants to participate in that at the Roadhouse, at the Rio Negro Roadhouse on Sunday. I'm not sure what time it is yet, but I'll put out like the information on social media, and anybody that wants to email me, jen@russianriveralliance.org. And maybe we can get a DA that cares about this, and hopefully we can work on Permit Sonoma to do their part too. Thank you.
Supervisor Hopkins, if I can comment on this. Thank you so much, Jen, if it's okay to call you Jen, for your comment on the Main Street fires. We lost 3 commercial buildings, and that is unacceptable for us as a fire district. And while we do have a suspect in custody on that, and while we are charging that suspect with arson, recklessly setting a fire, as much as I think the community may have come up with their determination of how that fire was caused, we still have to fish that out, both fire and law enforcement. We have to do our due diligence, and we have to make sure that we are collecting all the information and all the witness statements and all of that. So while I empathize with the fact that you have such a connection to the community and you understand that you probably had a likely understanding of what happened, we still have our due diligence that we have to do. And with that said, we are trying to do our best, and I get that it's very frustrating. We are really trying hard as a fire district to make sure that we are seating ourselves in the community. And frankly, I've had conversations with my staff, and we are actively doing inspections out in our Station 9 area, which is the Russian River Rio Neto area, to make sure that, being that we've had these 3 businesses lost, and many of you know that we've been working with the River Theater, it's really important for us to make sure that all of our businesses in the Station 9 area are all safe, and that we're encouraging and supporting our business owners, and everything that we can do to make sure that we keep these businesses open and prospering and thriving in the community. So I respect your comments and your concerns. I just want to let you know that, unfortunately for us, things don't happen as quickly maybe as word of mouth. And frankly, what you have is community knowledge, which sometimes we don't have that. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Cindy. Chief Nichols, do you have anything to add, or should we go ahead and go on to the next commenter?
Just to put out there that it wasn't disputing the thought about the possibility that it's a homeless fire, just to what Chief Foreman said, that our investigation has to take into account all potential causes. And being a kid who was a lifeguard on the Monterey Beach, I know that there were plenty of fires underneath the bridge that were not necessarily caused by unhoused individuals. So it is our community, and we are just as concerned about any potential fire threat as you. We just need to conduct an unbiased investigation to make sure that we have the right person if there's an individual that's responsible for the fire.
Thank you, Chief Nichols. And it looks like Robin is the next public commenter.
Hi, I want to thank all of you for this process, for asking for our comments and listening to them very much. You don't necessarily have to. In a nutshell, and I'm going to be really brief, I had the fortune of working in mental health long time before owning a store downtown, and got to witness, like so many of us did, how mental health just declined and basically crashed over time. And when I'm downtown, sometimes it feels like I'm in a little tiny unit of some of the folks that used to be able to get serious help and to help keep them safe. So I'm going to defer my time to if you can share with us, what would it take to have Laura's Law and drug court enacted in our county? Because I think that's like the missing link, is some serious help. Yes, food is groovy, but serious help. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. So with respect to drug court, honestly, what it's really going to take is a robust partnership between the sheriff, the district attorney, the county, including not only sort of mental health and behavioral health services at the county, but also through probation. And so I really just think we need to have willing partners who are laser focused on this issue and want to see it succeed. Also, obviously, working with our actual court partners as well, and reaching out to judges who support these kinds of programs. So, but it really is going to take all of those different levels of government, which have independently elected officials coming together and saying, hey, we need to do this. With respect to Laura's Law, it's going to take funding, and it's going to take, sort of staffing and programming, which is one of the reasons that the county has not yet adopted. So I think that, if you're looking for a place to put your advocacy, that is something that you could say, hey, could this be funded out of the Measure O funds that were just raised and discussed earlier? This is also another place you can put your advocacy, is that since we do have open seats for both the district attorney and the sheriff next year, ask them, what do you think about drug court? Is that something that you're willing to commit to? Do you want to commit to meaningfully partnering and collaborating with the county on these kinds of issues? Because it's going to take folks getting in the same room with a common goal and a common vision and pulling out the stops to try to find the money to get these solutions across the finish line. So I believe that those are some of the ingredients. It's not an overnight thing, but it is something that we can work on. And I believe I saw at least one more hand raised. Yeah, it was Eric. So if we can go ahead and get Eric unmuted and allow him to speak.
All right, thank you, Lynda. Thank you, Lynda. I have to go on record in defense of our sheriff's deputies on the street here in the community. Having spent a number of years as a volunteer fire captain in this community, and obviously being here as long as I have, I know a lot of these guys personally, and I can tell you they're just as frustrated as the rest of us. I think a lot of it has to do with what has happened in our country as far as cost and effect of prosecution. And I think a lot of our DAs and whatnot prosecute for profit and for statistics. And that last part was given me verbatim from a Sonoma County Sheriff's Sergeant. That being said, it's a sad state of affairs. My cousin is the manager of the Walgreens at the corner of Pioneer and Marlowe. She loses $500 per day in shoplifting. And that's become a problem across the board. The deputies on the street can write the citations, and oftentimes they're being told that the citation or the arrest was punishment enough, and that's certainly not the case. So in our homeless issue, there has to be some sort of follow-up where these people aren't given a choice. I know my cousin Robert is a retired Portland police officer. He also, the state of Oregon has moved away from prosecution in lieu of rehabilitation, but you can't force rehabilitation when there's no prosecution penalty and they can simply walk away. And Robert was frustrated by those things happening in Oregon because he said that's been our policy in Oregon for 30 years. So without the possibility of some sort of restitution, shoplifting, drug use, you name it, these problems are going to continue to perpetuate. So there has to be a solution somewhere other than just looking the other way, even though the crime might seem rather petty. But again, I have to defend the deputies on the street. These are good people. They're doing good work. And they're just as frustrated as many of us are in the community. Thank you.
You know, Eric, I really appreciate that. And I actually think it is important to acknowledge that I think the bigger problem is the system, right? I think that people are working very hard. And in many cases, they feel extremely frustrated because they feel like their hands are tied. Additionally, we have had state reforms, which essentially have decriminalized many offenses that used to sort of merit a higher and more strong response. In addition, we then have the pandemic overlay in which the state of California was really trying to get folks out of the jail because that was seen as a high transmissibility site, right? This sort of congregate living setting. And so it's a number of things that I think have led to just sort of changes on how policing is conducted on the street. And that's why I think also that trying to figure out what is that systemic solution where we are all in the same room working on the same thing. And actually, I would add that, having someone like Cindy in that room would also be really important because we also need to have these conversations about what do we do when there's a fire risk overlaid on top of all of this. So I think it's really going to take a whole bunch of different agencies coming together with a laser-like focus on a common goal. And thank you very much for your comments, Eric. And I see Cindy leaning in possibly to share some thoughts of hers as well.
Yeah, I really appreciate the comments made by our last speaker and by your Supervisor Hopkins, because we work hand in hand with our law enforcement and we are partners in trying to mitigate the hazards to our community. We work hand in hand. And so we are not on opposing sides, but we are all as hand-tied as each other. And we all share your frustration. And Chief Nichols also, certainly can comment on this, is that, boy, if we could just put a burn ban and say everybody stops burning and we could enforce that everywhere. And when, we have these scenarios that are popping up, we're talking about people that have nothing and nothing to lose sometimes. And so, how do we address that? How do we enforce that? We're in a real struggle here. And then the fact that, you know, it's a human right to have a cooking warming fire if you're allowed and it's private property and you have permission. You know, how do we navigate that? And we don't have enough resources to go out and police all of this as fire resources, nor do our law enforcement folks have. My goodness, our law enforcement folks are already busy enough. Are we going to send them out on every little campfire? This problem is so, it's such a big elephant, and I don't even know where to start eating it one bite at a time. And that's just being honest. And maybe Chief Nichols has a different perspective on it, but I think we're both feeling very stymied and frustrated by this issue that we're dealing with, because I think the public comes to us and says, stop these people from burning. What's wrong with you guys? My God, don't you know this is terrible? And we do, and my goodness, we wish we could, but do we have 1,000 people on staff that can go out and patrol these camps and say, hey, put your fire out. Hey, stop cooking. Hey, stop doing this. We don't have that kind of capacity. And as much as we understand the public's concern and the outcry and the threat that this poses, we get it. We get it. We're just sort of stymied in the process, much like law enforcement is. So, Chief, do you have anything else on that?
Yeah, just to tie in with what Chief Foreman was saying, was that, you know, as all of us that are on the call or the Zoom tonight are aware, there is no simple solution to this. So it comes to how to address the core of the problem. But what we can do in the first, on the fly, as we work our way through fire season here, is that there, as I said before, there is a burn suspension. And if an individual has a fire on property that is not their own, that is not a legal fire. And the fire department will respond to and extinguish that fire so that there is not a threat to the community. And so it takes a community to make sure that we all are going to get through this fire season and the fire seasons to come by being engaged in your community. And when you see something, say something so that we can address that problem.
Thank you so much. And we do have one last question for our fire professionals this evening. And this was from Damien. And the question was, do you have any comments on the creation of a fire safe organization in the river area? And if you want to share any additional thoughts on the work that the county is doing and sort of your role and engagement in the process, that might be helpful as well. So I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, so I jokingly say Lois is the mayor of Guerneville. She's really taken such a leadership role and taken on such a big responsibility, and she's just such a go-getter. She's, I'm assuming, retired. I've never asked her that question, but for the love of Jesus, this woman is not retired. She is like got her second and third career. So what we are so grateful for is people like that in our community that really want to like grab the torch and run. You know, we have to, you know, acknowledge the fact that while we in our profession want to say that we can protect everybody, there's you know, a fraction of us to a major amount of you. And so we have to rely on our community to start to build programs to be resilient and to be prepared. And so a Firewise Council is a great start to that. And a great resource. COPE programs is something that we're really trying to push. And I know that the Station 9 area, I call that our river area, had for many years been very active in the CERT program. And while we think that's a great program and we support that, what we really have to do is support grassroots programs that require sort of little much from people other than just being connected and involved. Asking people to go back to a little bit what I call Mayberry, sort of getting connected with your neighbors and understanding and evaluating the needs and the shortcomings in your community and taking care of each other, because there's only a few of us for all of you. And so the Firewise concept is great from the vegetation management and emergency preparedness perspective. And we have a great fire safe council here in Sonoma County, Fire Safe Sonoma. And Lois has mentioned working with them. And that's really who we want to tie people to. We're all for you building your independent little communities, but we really want to tie you into Fire Safe Sonoma. That's sort of the mothership, let's call it that. So Fire Safe Sonoma is the mothership here in Sonoma County. And we really want to be sure that anybody in all these groups that are interested in creating their own firewise communities, fire safe councils and all that, we want to be sure that you're linking up with a resource that we've all invested money and resources, and we have really like amazing professionals running. So I think that's my best comment I can make. And I don't know if Chief Nichols has anything to add to that.
No, I replied to Damien. I hit him offline on a text, but yeah, supporting Lois in her endeavors. It's the community organization and enthusiasm and motivation to prioritize, to get together. Part of this process is you get together and you establish those priorities for the community, because in working with several communities across the Lower River here this year, and across the county, there's a lot of folks that are concerned about what they can do, and they want to do something. They don't know what they want to do or what's the best thing to do, but they want to do something. And so this organizes that energy and enthusiasm and makes sure that your community has the best action taken in short order, because ultimately we're talking about 100 years of fire suppression that we have to address moving forward. And so, not to say that we're not going to suppress fires, but we have a landscape that hasn't experienced fires as it may have historically prior to modern times. And so it's to what Chief Foreman was saying about eating that elephant, is that you have to start somewhere. And so please support Lois and any like endeavors to help prepare your community, because by you putting together a plan and articulating that plan, one, it gives you focus and a process to go through, but it also may open up outside opportunities with government resources to be able to help your community. So please support Lois and any other fire safe councils out there.
Thank you so much, Chief Nichols and Division Chief Foreman. And thank you for being here tonight and for always being available at all hours of the day or night for West County, not just when we have an incident, but also when we're trying to plan and prepare. Really, really appreciate your presence here this evening. Thank you also to our Municipal Advisory Council members and representatives for Grenville, Naomi and Nick. Really appreciate you being here to listen and to represent your constituents. And thanks to my team who have been working to make this meeting run as well as it has. So thank you so much, Leo and Elise and Jason. With that, we will wrap it up. We have no more hands raised. Thank you everyone for participating in this evening's meeting. Thank you for your thoughtful comments. Thank you for giving us the data that through the surveys. And I want you to know that we will make that data publicly available. We have all of those survey results saved, and we also have all of the Q&A comments and questions, and we can make those publicly available along with the slides that we shared this evening. And we actually had some slides we didn't get to because we had some additional details that you can look through, because we want to try to keep it as short as possible. So thank you all. Good night. And we're just going to keep crossing our fingers that we continue to, I don't even know, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to jinx it. So thank you, firefighters, for all the work you do, and just prayers and thoughts that things continue well this fire season. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, you guys.
Night.